Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Burn and Learn, the Cigar Lifestyle Podcast. We're in downtown Leesburg this evening at Rebellion Cigar Lounge. We're excited to have an opportunity to come together to have a great conversation with a great guest over a nice cigar. So we're excited to be here. My name is Steve Mann, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Alec Rubiera. And Alec, would you like to give folks a quick overview on your background? I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Alec. I own Route 7 Cigars here in Leesburg, Virginia. We have 2 stores in Loudoun County. My background, I've been in the cigar industry going on 21 years. I started while I was in college, and then it kind of progressed into a career. I've been on almost every single side of the industry, and then I moved into having my own business doing it.
Great. Yeah, Alec's being humble. I mean, I spent most of my career on the East Coast in this area, but I found myself in Seattle from 2015 to 2018, and I think we met shortly after I came back in 2018, and I think at that point, you had just, how long had you owned Route 7, and how long had you been in business at that point? I think it was like middle of 2018 or so.
2018, a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, as it relates to Route 7, that's my go-to shop. I spend a lot of time there. A wonderful place for a great selection of cigars, great friendships, great conversations, and just an all-around great place to be. And so I spend a lot of time there. And we don't always have an opportunity to share that with you, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that, and that people appreciate it. And it's just a wonderful place to have great conversations, great selection.
Thank you.
But I'd love to know more about, just thinking about, you said 21 years in the industry, which I think is awesome. What originally ignited your passion for cigars? What were the early either exposure, or how did you get into or developing an interest which became a full career?
Yeah, so for me it started kind of a kid on a golf course with my dad.
Gotcha.
My dad always smoked La Gloria Cubana, and then he would smoke all different Montecristos and all different kinds of stuff, and I was kind of always like wanting to try his cigars, except my dad loved like chewing on his cigars, so I wouldn't touch him when he was smoking them on the golf course. And that kind of progressed as I got older. Like I started asking history questions about my family. So my dad's mother was born in Havana. My dad's father was born in Pinar del Rio.
Okay.
And so they have a history in the tobacco industry. Even like my uncle's heritage, they owned a tobacco farm. And so kind of got involved dually by the history with my dad, and then history of like the heritage of our family. And then I kind of fell into this industry by accident. I mean, I was hanging out in a cigar store. I was 18 years old, and a buddy of mine owned the cigar store. He said, "You want to come work part-time while you're in college?" I said, "Sure." So I started working for him, and then started managing his stores. And then when I graduated from college, it was either run his stores, or a really good friend of mine gave me the business card of who's now a longtime friend of mine at Ashton Cigars, and I got hired, and I was with them for about 5.5 years or so, and then progressed into being a retail store manager, or retail store owner.
Gotcha. So you started out after college.
Yep.
Joining Ashton.
I was with Davidas Cigars in Maryland.
Gotcha.
So at the time
Okay.
they had 7 stores. Now I think they have, 13 or so.
Gotcha. And then, but early on, just based on your upbringing, you knew that this was kind of your passion and what you wanted to be involved. You knew it was your calling.
Yeah, I mean, once I took that job in retail,
Yeah.
and it was just fun. So they took me. So there's a lot of these trade organizations you can go to. Back in the day, it was IPCPR. Now it's called PCA. There was also an even smaller one for more select retailers in the country called TAA, which is Tobacco Association of America. And the first time I went to my first tobacco trip was with Rocky Patel to Honduras, to the fields. and seeing just the overall, so many people don't have the appreciation for what truly goes into making a premium cigar. From walking through a box factory and seeing every single piece of a cigar box made by hand, walking through a tobacco field and seeing all the hard work that goes into it, from the seed to the time that we smoke it, it's just amazing. Yeah. It's quite a artistry. And so I was hooked the first time I went to Honduras. And then after that, I went to Nicaragua. After that, went to Dominican. And the first time at a TA, and I think I've when you're in cities and stuff and you ask me where to go, I'm like, oh, you got to see this guy, that guy. Going to TA the first time and realizing how big the industry is, but how small it is. Yeah. It was pretty cool. Lots of amazing people in it. So that's what struck me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think as kind of a long-time aficionado, but a newer entrepreneur in the cigar sector, that's one thing that I've really come to enjoy is like the value that's put on relationships, right? Like I come from a corporate background where most things are reduced to writing, right? You put together, you come together, you have a conversation. That conversation becomes an NDA. The NDA goes into a final agreement, and you sign and you execute. Well, I found that that's not necessarily always the case when I'm developing new relationships now. There's a lot of, relationship building, and agreements are made, at the lounge, and they're made over conversations.
Yeah.
And there's no documents, and there's no DocuSign and NDA, all the things that I'm used to. So I've been getting used to that part of it.
How's that adjustment?
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just working on it. But again, PCA was a great example of that. I had opportunities to meet a lot of folks, and some of those folks who I'll continue to work with and do things with, and they're just basically conversations and agreements. Yep, that sounds good. Let's do that. So I've been working through that. And so I like that aspect of it. It's a little different, but I like that aspect of it. It's people first, and agreements and negotiation second. And I've heard that. I've experienced that, but I've also heard that from a lot of folks that have been in the industry for a long time.
Yeah, very, very small industry. Everyone seems to know each other, especially if you've been in it for a little bit of time. You just get to know everybody.
Yeah, I think, the one thing that I really enjoy, and again, one of the reasons why I started the podcast is that I wanted to take an opportunity to have great conversations with folks over a great stick, but I also wanted to spend time educating and learning from people, right? And so, the burn part of the podcast is around coming together and enjoying a stick. And the learn part is, I really love to know more about Alec's background, how he got started, what makes him tick, and, kind of what drives you to continue to grow and excel. And so I just love to have those conversations. And then you couple that with my prior experience as a corporate lender. I spent the first 20 years of my career lending into small businesses, providing the growth capital.
Oh, wow.
For either, equipment, manufacturing equipment, real estate, M&A, you name it, I've financed it all. And so I'm a big proponent of small business. And so, when I moved away from corporate America into what I'm doing now, I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I knew at the same time that as I grow my business, I want to make certain that I'm reaching back and helping others grow as well. So I spend a lot of time just having conversations with folks, understanding their desires and their ambitions to see how I may be able to nest into that. And I found that in this industry, the opposite is true. People have, taken me under their wing, have offered help and assistance that has really fueled my growth. So I'm eternally grateful for that. Really enjoy that aspect of it. But I'd love to know, what would you say the differences are between, working in a store or being a rep to making that decision full-fledged into entrepreneurship and in opening that first shop? Love to know what that thought process looks like.
At the time, I was covering a pretty big market. I had Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Virginia, West Virginia. I was always on the road, and I was helping people grow their business. I mean, I was a sales rep, but for all intents and purposes, I was also kind of like a business consultant for them. You know, we were responsible for launching brands. For example, like I was with Ashton Cigars when we launched La Aroma de Cuba, when we launched Mi Amor, San Cristobal. So there was a lot of work with the retailers and, you know, teaching them how to do events. Everybody has done cigar events, but, you know, at the time, Ashton was the only one that was doing ticketed events. Gotcha. So selling a ticket, getting people in it, making it more of an experience event than just a sales-driven event. And it was fun. And I just kept thinking to myself, you know, I'm helping these people make money. I can do this for myself. Yeah. And from being on the road, the transition was super easy because I knew all the sales reps. For example, we were not a Davidoff appointed merchant. That's a fairly big deal, I think, when you're a retail cigar store to be a Davidoff appointed merchant. And that store that I bought wasn't a Davidoff appointed merchant because of friendships and relationships. You know, I called up a buddy of mine who was working for Davidoff. I said, you know, I go, how do I get a Davidoff account? He said, you got to get a store. I said, box checked, let's go. Right. He's like, okay, well, let's build this brand, that brand. And he was like, we'll get it to you. And within 2 years, we were an appointed merchant. And you just kind of knew all the steps on how I helped other retailers build their business. And so it was pretty easy to transition into owning my own thing. Sure. Other than, you know, eating crackers and stuff for the first year when we were making no money and I was working, you know, 12 hours a day. But
we'll get to that. No, we'll get to that. I mean, we've all been there. I'm still there right now. But no, I'd love to know a little bit more about that. I mean, I think, you know, it's one thing, like in my experience, it's one thing to have the will and the desire to strike out on your own. And a lot of people have that. I think it's quite another to actually have the gumption and the drive to actually do it, right? So a lot of people climb the hill, but they don't get to the top, making the decision to go ahead and do it. And what I've seen is a lot of times people struggle with that 80-20, right? Like they have 80% of the information, but they're looking for that remaining 20% before they can make a final decision, right? And so a lot of people struggle there, right? And I've always been the type of person, like, if you can get me to 80%, I don't need to know everything, but I need to know as much as I can, a set of facts and circumstances, and I can make a decision. And then you can pivot and adjust for anything you may see from that 20% that's unforeseen.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, you know, over my career and just providing debt capital to other entrepreneurs. I mean, the beauty of the seat that I sat in was talking to hundreds of entrepreneurs about what's working and what's not working. And, you know, you may not know it, but while you're having those conversations, you're learning and you're figuring out what to do and what not to do. And all of those experiences have led me to where I am right now and launching Stogie Hub and launching the podcast. So, you know, I'm eternally grateful for all of those companies that I worked with and allowed me the opportunity to learn through their experiences. And it sounds like that's similar to the story that you're telling, right?
Yeah.
Spending time.
Lots of hands-on, lots of time in stores, lots of time talking to manufacturers, and really grassroots growing it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting is, I think, and you hit on it a couple of minutes ago, like when you think about the role of a rep, right? People think it's just the sales piece. I mean, I look at the really good reps that I've spoken to, and obviously they're salespeople, but they're also really strong business consultants, right? They're providing counsel and expertise to the lounge owners to allow them to move product, grow, expand, and do some of the things that they're not doing that ends up being something that they should consider doing.
Yeah, as a rep, I mean, they're really your biggest allies. I mean, they come in there and number one question that I have for most of my sales reps when they come in my store for first time working with them is, give me your wish list for your portfolio. You know what sells in the entire marketplace. You know, give me comparables, train my staff. You know, all those things you're tasked with going in and doing. And our best reps do that. You know, half the time I say, there's no point in meeting with me. Meet with our manager Chris, meet with our manager Kyle, part-timers. Put the cigars in their hands, and that's what's going to help build the brands.
Yeah. No, I think again, I mean, I touched on it earlier. I mean, one of the reasons why I really enjoy my time at Route 7 is just to your point. Kyle and Chris. I mean, they're on it, right? Like, there have been times when I've walked into the Leesburg store and I just tell Chris, hey, you know what I like? Just go pick something, right? And because I've, developed that relationship, he's seen what I purchase, he knows what I like, I completely trust him to walk in the humidor and come out with a stick. And that comes, I mean, first of all...
He surprises me too sometimes.
That comes with experience, but it also comes with a willingness, right? There are some people that may not be willing to do that, right? And so that's why I really like the time at Route 7, because I feel like both Kyle and Chris, excel in that piece of it.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have them.
And so when you think about that, like, hiring has to be critical, right? Staffing, hiring, and just executing the business plan. So how do you manage that?
And that's kind of another side that came in from being a rep. I mean, Kyle, my goodness, the amount of knowledge and history that Kyle has and brings to the table. I mean, here's a guy that helped somebody else grow and have their business for almost 30 years. John B. Hayes Tobacconist, which was in the Fair Oaks Mall forever.
Yeah.
That was his guy. That was his right-hand guy. And I didn't even source Kyle. When Kyle heard that I was opening my second store, he sent me a message. He goes, hey, I want to come meet you. When are you going to be around? I said, I'll be there Saturday all day. He said, perfect. Walks in the store. He goes, heard you're opening a second store. I said, yeah. I go, I said, do you want a job? He was like, I've never built a store. I've only managed and run a store. He goes, I think that's going to be fun.
Gotcha.
So, and then Chris had so much passion when we bought the store from somebody, and Chris was a part-time employee of the guy, but you could tell how much passion he had. On his time off, he was going to other cigar stores, he was going to cigar events. He loved the industry, he loved cigars, and it just it all organically happened.
Yeah, I know. I tell you, I've known Chris for a long time. This goes back at least 10 years. I used to go over to High Rollers, where he worked.
Yeah.
And that used to be my primary lounge up until we moved in 2015. So when we came back in 2018, High Rollers was gone, and I was looking for a spot. And someone told me about your new location. I went over and I was ecstatic when I saw Chris there, because I'm like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out. But like I said, and from that time, certainly the first thing I did was got a membership. Love spending time there. The private lounge, I often find myself back there working, taking calls. So I think the private lounge in the back is a distinguishing factor at Route 7 versus some of the other local lounges. I think that's a true testament to just knowing what customers need and expect, and being able to provide that. I think that works out pretty well. How about what are your thoughts on, like, the current status of the industry? We hear a lot about the ups and downs of the explosion of cigar popularity. We've heard cigar popularity kind of moving in correlation with bourbon, which people are saying is on the decline. What do you think about all of those current thoughts and, thinking about what that means for the business going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the cigar industry right now is going through an interesting change, because between cost of goods coming out of Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, between tariffs that we're facing right now, I mean, it's hard to find a premium cigar under $10.
Yeah.
And actually, we were kind of lamenting that today. When I first got in the industry, a Padron 2000, I think, was $2.99.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to the point where it's significantly more. And cigar popularity, it's still there. I mean, it's pretty cool, actually. There's lots of cigar bars that are opening in major metropolitan cities. But it's also like, cigar smokers have to have that last bastion of hope, because everywhere else you walk, you can't smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
You know, you sit at a patio in Washington, D.C., it's hard to find a patio that'll let you smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, there's 3-4 cigar bars in D.C. And then the internet has become a challenge because of the cigar bids and because of all of these race to the bottom websites for cigars, and it kind of takes away from the premium side of it. So it's a challenging outlook. COVID was really good for the cigar industry. Guys were sitting at home before, instead of sitting in the office. Now they're smoking cigars on their back patio working, or working from the cigar stores. It was great, but now everybody's getting called back. So it's definitely an interesting and challenging time.
Yeah, I think, I think, all the things you said are right. Like, I think the popularity continues to increase. And what I've seen, just based on my conversations and my dealings, is that not only is it becoming more popular, but it's becoming a more diverse following, right? You see more women in lounges, right? I've been to, I travel a lot. When I travel, there are pockets of regions and markets where you tend to see more women, which I think is awesome. And they're educated about the process. They're educated about the products. They know exactly what they like and what they're looking for. And I think that's a testament to retailers that are providing that education to them, but also providing a venue where it's comfortable for them to smoke, a lounge that's inviting.
Yeah, comfort was the next thing. I mean, I've heard from so many women that have maybe they've smoked in my house or on my patio, or I've met them at a bar or a brewery or something like that when we've been doing offsite events, and they'll try a cigar, and to ignite the spark with a lot of times with women with smoking, it's like showing them a pairing, right? You sit there and you're like, what are you drinking? Oh, you're drinking red wine? Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you take a piece of dark chocolate, try this Maduro cigar, and then go back and forth between them and show the experience of it, and it's like a light goes off. But I've heard from many of those same women, I don't feel comfortable walking into a cigar store. And so that comfort level of the cigar store being inviting and being, just engaging and making them feel less uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think one of the things, I agree with all that. One of the things that you and I have chatted about is, certainly there are opportunities to purchase cigars online. People are looking for, they're sometimes budget conscious, looking for the best deal, and completely understand that. My rebuttal to them has always been the same. When it's 12 degrees outside, right? Because I smoke year round.
Yeah.
When it's 12 degrees outside, I can't go to Cigar Bid and smoke in their lounge. I can't go to Cigar International and smoke in their lounge.
And we've had to have that conversation with our employees. When a guy doesn't want to buy a box because he saved $20, it's like, hey, ask him if he can smoke the $20 less cigars when it's freezing cold out, like what you're saying.
Right. So and it just, again, it goes back, Alec, to my roots of supporting small businesses, right? Like, if I'm going to go to the lounge, I enjoy that experience. I want to support and make sure that guy's available and is there, right? And for me personally, it's not worth saving the $20. Now, I know that's probably debatable. People probably feel a certain way about that. But for me, I'd rather support and make certain that lounge is available year-round and that lounge is thriving.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I kind of enjoy, I feel a sense of pride in supporting, right? And so, like at Route 7, I probably buy 80 to 85% of my cigars there. That's my shop.
We appreciate that.
My own, typically if my usual exception to that is if I'm traveling, right? Because when you go to a lounge, you have to typically buy in order to smoke, right?
And that's actually one of the best things about traveling is when you walk into a random cigar store, you Google it, you find one that has great reviews, and then you go in, and if you're traveling by yourself, hey, I need somewhere to go for dinner. Generally, the cigar store is going to be your local tour guide to figure out what's the best places to go to.
Yeah, one of the things, and again, for me, and I've talked about this on earlier podcasts, I think everything in business, regardless of your sector, all revolves around relationships, right? And so, people do business with people, not with companies, right? And so, to your point, when I've gotten to the point where when I travel, I'll ping you, hey, I'm going to such and such. Can you recommend a place? Like, where else am I going to get that?
Yeah.
And that's just based on friendships and relationships. I mean, I recently found myself selling a house, buying a new house, and I was in between houses for a month, and I had 500-600 cigars, and I started stashing them in different places, right? I took some down here, I put some over here, I took some to a friend's house, and I had, a bunch of people's humidors stuffed, and even with all of that, I was still like 200 cigars short. And so I just happened to be mentioning it to I think Kevin at Route 7. And while I'm mentioning it to Kevin, he's pinging Alec. And so he's like, hey, just bring the cigars and we'll hold them for you. I'm like, what? So I go home, come back with 7 or 8 boxes. We put them in the humidor and they just sat there for a month. So that's, that's the relationship that I try to explain to people, right? Like, where are you going to get that? By ordering online.
Right.
And I think the other piece, and again, I can't speak about this enough, like, the more you work with a retailer and the more you develop that relationship, you have opportunities to get things that may not be readily available. And so, I've taken advantage of that as well. You're able to get things sometimes that I can't, and so, you help me, in that regard as well.
That's the fun part.
It's helpful.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
What are some of the things you've learned by over the few years that you've been a lounge owner that you didn't know coming into it? What have you been surprised by?
Friendships. There's always a cost to the friendships. When you're of value to somebody, you're best friends with them, and then when the value prop is gone, you're a nobody.
Wow. So how do you deal with, or
you just treat everybody as respectfully as you can,
Gotcha.
and you just you don't let anything get to you,
Yeah.
and just hope that you're always taking care of everybody the best that you can.
Not sure.
The internet, right? During COVID, we were at a mad dash to get to do everything we could to keep our business thriving. And I remember, working hours at night getting all of our product portfolio on our website so that way we could sell. And after all of that, we really didn't sell anything online because there's so many big players. So that was one thing that was a learning curve. It's like everybody that walks into your store has an idea for you, and they're all great ideas in theory, but can they always work? The answer is no. The number one thing I get told by friends, family, everybody, well, why aren't you selling more on your website? Why don't you do more with your website? And when we do, it doesn't translate to anything.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, a lot of these learning things happened during COVID, but you could do everything you possibly could to make somebody feel as comfortable and as safe and whatever. But there's always going to be somebody that has an opinion that you could have done more for them.
Yeah.
And just, respecting that and hoping that you're doing the best.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when you think about COVID, and I don't even, to be honest, I don't even recall. Were there instances where you were closed during COVID?
So thankfully, in the
lounge
state of Virginia, we were able to stay open.
Stayed open the entire
And
time?
The entire
Okay.
time. We had to maintain social distancing, sanitize, stuff like that. But I remember one time having a customer tell me he would never step foot in my store again until COVID was over because there was cigar smoke and there could be COVID in the cigar smoke that he was inhaling.
Interesting.
So all different folks, and opinions.
Takes all types.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly you forget. Like I don't even remember those times. But now you think about it, I don't remember a time when I went when you were closed. Which, when you think about COVID, everyone was at home all day. So to even have that hour outlet,
Right.
and the fact that you were open was helpful.
Yeah, we even had to limit people's time. which is challenging because if you hang out in a cigar lounge, it's a hard thing to put a time limit on.
Yeah, I tell you that. And that's one thing I think is pretty cool about lounges, that you have your regulars, right? And some guys, they literally will put in a shift, right? Like they show up at the same time, and it's like they're going to work on the assembly plant for like that 8 hours, right? And I kind of put myself in that category at times. But how about some of the things, like, let's talk about some of the things like events. What do those look like? And you know, driving traffic and just creating awareness, like the whole growth aspect of the lounge. What does that look like?
It really is. In my experience, we've tried a plethora of different things to kind of grow the business, and the thing that has always worked the best is like true grassroots. So just like, you know, building the event into being an event. Don't just throw something at the wall and expect it to stick and have people come in. You know, have things like, hey, we're going to do a paella. One of our most fun events that we did was a paella event, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a 25 person max, and we did paella at the store. We had a cigar owner come in. He was talking about his cigars, and he was cooking the paella. So here you have a guy that owns a worldwide cigar company that is feeding you dinner and saying thank you and welcome for coming to spend time with me. And those kind of grassroots events, they drive buzz, and then people tell their friends, and it builds on each other. You know, people want to have fun with each other.
Yeah.
So when you walk into a cigar lounge and it's empty, yeah, do you want to smoke a cigar? Maybe if you're on your iPad but you know, it's about camaraderie and having fun. So the more fun the events are, the more fruitful they are long term.
Yeah, I know we've had some really great events there. The paella, I remember you've actually done that multiple times, because I've been at least a couple times to that. But one of the ones I really remember that was really cool was during COVID. It was the Davidoff event, and the Davidoff presentation was on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that? That one? I think it was when they did the late hour intro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a great event. I mean, they shipped the cigars out, and they shipped the swag out, and it was a ticketed event. And they just walked through the product introduction. I remember that. That was an excellent event.
I remember during COVID sitting on my front patio doing a Zoom event. The store was closed. We were doing a Zoom event with a targeted amount of our better customers with Nick Melillo from Foundation Cigars. And what the guys walked away from that event was, holy cow, this is a brand owner in Nicaragua doing a Zoom call with me that cares about my questions. And they started buying his product. And so those relationships, right, for those kind of events, that's really what drives the business.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. What are some of the again, like I said, there you get your regulars, and I include myself in that. And everyone's got unique personalities. What's the craziest or weirdest thing that you've seen or has happened at the lounge? I've got a couple, but I'd love to get your thought based on your experience.
I had darts thrown at my head by one of our customers.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, he was throwing darts, and he got upset about something and like started throwing darts at me. I mean, that was one of the wildest ones. People taking advantage of your hospitality. So I had a guy one time, we were doing an event, we had all this food, right, you know, and he comes in and he builds a plate of food. And I walked up to him and I said, hey man, I said, how can I help you? I said, welcome to the store. I said, I hope you're gonna enjoy the food. And you know, this is our vendor that we have. He goes, oh, I'll be back in a little bit. I'm gonna take this plate of food home for my family, and I'll be back later to buy cigars. That stuck.
When he came back, what did he buy?
2 cigars. Had another plate of food.
I thought you were gonna say he didn't come back.
No, he did come back.
That's pretty funny.
Let's see. There are so many of these stories. I mean, we had a customer that was building a fake company one time. I mean, and had the entire audience engaged. It was the wildest thing ever, looking back on it. Yeah.
So building a company, having other guys in the lounge help him with the business plan.
Who were all, you know, subject matter experts in their field, because let's face it, where our store is, we have a plethora of very, very intelligent business people in Loudoun County, and they were all hanging out at the cigar store, all top level earners.
building a fake company.
Yeah.
Wow.
The stories are really endless.
Yeah, there was a one time, and I wasn't there, when somebody with the lighter.
Oh yeah.
Caught their shirt
on fire. Shirt on fire, and then stopped, dropped, and rolled in the middle of the store. I still have the video of it. Yeah, he still wears the shirt today sometimes.
Oh, no. Come on. No, stop.
Yep.
Stop. I heard about the story. I saw the video, but there's no way he's wearing that shirt.
He said, "Why would I get rid of it? It's a perfectly good shirt. I could just tuck it in." There's all different folks.
That's a good story. I like it. I like it. So what do you think? Like I said, I'd love to know. Making the decision to buy and build a lounge is one thing. How about all the things that you instantly need to become an expert in? Right. That's what I'm coming to grips with. The chief legal officer, the chief financial officer. All the things you have to be aware of. Like, do you rely on your own experiences to make some of those decisions, or do you have folks around you that are helping you, through some of those decision-making processes?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate that my friend group in the industry, if I don't know something or if I need help with something, I have people that I can call. But most of it does just fall on my shoulders. There's been times, here's a lounge problem thing one time. One time, I used to get to the store super early, 8:30 in the morning, and we called them the breakfast club. They'd sit outside on the deck, drinking coffee and smoking cigars until they would let us in, and then they'd bang on the door. So, I'm sitting there and I'm doing all of our taxes for that month, and this guy keeps coming up to me because I let him in because he was a great guy, and he keeps talking to me. Well, sure enough, I messed up on a line item, and it ended up costing me, I think, like $250 in a penalty because I was trying to be cordial and help this customer while trying to also do other stuff at the same time. Yeah, it's you put on a million hats at one time, and it's overwhelming. And learning even social media, right? We can't use all the tools for social media because we're blocked. And then learning what's called shaft guidelines, which is we used to be able to do text campaigns. You probably remember that.
Yep.
And those were wildly successful for us. And then Shaft rolls out, and now we can't do text campaigns because we're a cigar store.
Gotcha.
So always navigating all the ever-changing rules is a huge task.
Gotcha. And do some of the trade associations, PCA and others,
PCA is
help
great.
With those things?
They have a toolkit portal, but then a lot of it also you got to take from the toolkit, and then you're still learning on your own as you go.
Gotcha.
And then there's no good POS system there's a couple, but that's challenging too. Finding one that works for our industry specifically.
Right. Yeah, no, that's one thing that I in my experience over the past year or so is that there are opportunities for technology, not only hardware but software, right? POS systems and all of the ancillary software that you need to run those, right? We chatted on an earlier episode about being able to have strong data analytics to inform real-time decision making, right?
Well, and that is challenging in the cigar industry too. I remember one time I placed Drew Estate was like the hottest thing in our store. Deadwood Tobacco, those cigars had just rolled out, and they were so popular we couldn't keep them in stock. And I remember going to a trade show, and I said to myself, all right, we're going to sell these. My inventory turnover ratio on this is 14 days. This is a no-brainer. So I went 3.5 months deep. I bought cases of every single one, and then the cigar cooled off. So all the analytics, all the historics, all made sense for that buy, and then chilled out. And so we're stuck with 50 boxes of each thing.
Gotcha. But you can look at your point of sale and your analytics to determine turnover.
Yeah.
And you're using that information to inform future decisions.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It just doesn't always work out.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it's wild. I had a guy. You can look at all the analytics the best of your ability, but when one guy stops smoking or one guy moves and doesn't tell you. I remember one time we had 10 boxes of Ashton Churchill sitting at one of my stores because we had a guy that was buying a box like every 4 or 5 days. And then he disappeared for like 8 months.
Just
Comes
gone.
back in and goes, "Why don't you have my Ashton Churchills?" And my manager was like, "I haven't seen you in 8 months. Where have you been?"
Gotcha.
"Oh, I went to Florida."
You may need to let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so do those challenges or issues, are they compounded with multiple locations, or is it
Definitely.
easier or is it harder?
It's harder.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
because your best customers, you always want to keep in the mindset of, okay, what do they got? What are they on? Did they change sizes? I had one guy that was smoking a certain cigar, and like every 4 days buying a box, and then he's like, "Oh, I changed." So
Gotcha.
you always have to be so in tune with your direct consumer, and kind of stay in the loop of where they're going.
I gotcha. I think kind of related to that is, and I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to know your answer to this. Like, how do you determine what you're going to stock in the humidor? Not only Vitolas, but manufacturers. Like, should you carry 10 lines, 20 lines? Like, how do you make those?
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about how you make those decisions.
So when I got into this business, I wanted to have a lot of small companies, small boutique companies.
Mm-hmm.
Loved the romance, loved the story, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're selling the romance, right? Because so many cigars out there are so good. And so, like the one you're smoking now, Aganorsa. I remember taking a chance on that brand before they hired their current guy that runs the company, who revamped packaging and made things look better. But the cigars were always good.
Yeah.
And but there's been a lot of duds over the years, or
Yeah.
things that people buy onesie twosies and then it cools off. So I guess these days it's like, what are the pillars of your business and who are you gonna rest on, right? So you can always know that you're going to be safe in the industry leaders, right? And then within those industry leaders, when they come out with a new cigar, you know it's a no-brainer because they're already partnering with you in many ways. You know, like Davidoff Cigars or Altada Cigars, Ashton Cigars. These are big companies that are going to support you, and so it's a safe bet when they come out with something to bring it in.
Yeah.
The other stuff, you got to listen to what your consumers are asking for. I tell the guys, take tally marks. You know, I had a guy come in this evening. He wanted a very specific cigar, and he walked out. I said to Chris, "How many times have you heard that?" He goes, "Maybe like a couple times a month." I'm like, "Okay, so like 2?" He's like, "Yeah, maybe." I'm like, "Okay, so 2 times a month, we're probably not going to take that investment. But if it's 10, 20,
Yeah, you got to think about it.
Yeah, now that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. How do you make the determination or the analysis that goes into considering bringing in a new boutique?
They have to have inventory
Okay.
readily available. It has to be a good quality price point, and if it's not a good quality price point, what's the value add to have a higher price point? You know, what's the romance? What's the story? You know, and it's hard because you talk to some of these people, and they're phenomenal people, and you can have a great relationship with them, and the product doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And so, consumers asking about it. If the consumer taste profile is in that caliber, it can be an easy way in.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
you know, to be specific, right? My father's cigar factory, right? That was the hottest factory for the longest time. Well, then it made sense to carry My Father. It made sense to carry La Roma de Cuba. It made sense San Cristobal, Tatuaje, all those brands. And then when AJ became what he is, you know, that fell along with the same flavor profiles.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I do, again, like just the entrepreneurial spirit in me. I do like to try and support some of the newer boutiques, but it's interesting because there are so many new startups out there, and that's a trend. You know, I'd love to maybe chat about that a little more. There just seems to be such an increase in brand new startup cigar lines coming out. You know,
And honestly, I've become a little bit pessimistic.
Yeah.
I really have. I mean, I had a guy come in about 2 weeks ago with a friend of his cigar, and you just looked at it and you go, what's the price point on this?
Yeah.
$14, $16, and you're just looking at it and you're like, this doesn't even look like it should be that price point.
Yeah.
And you want to give the guy a try because he's a nice guy, and what's the support going to be?
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's definitely challenging because as a startup, you don't have the economies of scale of the larger players. So almost every one of your expenses are going to be much more than the more established brands. But at the same time, if your price point's too high, then now you're competing against very well established brands.
So
retailer, it may cost you. You may need to sell it for $15 a stick because that's what your economics dictate. But when you put the stick beside another one, and they're both $15, it's hard to make that decision.
And that's where I think these startups need to. I just had this conversation 3 days ago about a certain brand.
Yeah.
And it's like, figure out what your target market is, right? So if you live in Dallas, make that like your go-to stomp every store, or find certain stores in the marketplace. And if your cigar's $15, but it's comparable to cigars that are $10, make the consumer fall in love with you.
Right.
You know, come to the store. Hey, can I come to the store on a Saturday for a couple hours and just hang out with your guys? I'll bring pizzas, or I'll bring subs, or whatever the market. I used to have a rep that would bring, he lived in Philly, and he would come down and he would bring pretzels, Philadelphia pretzels. He'd come to the lounge, he'd give out cigars, he'd give pretzels to people. People would go, hey man, what's the pretzel guy cigars? And you go, oh, it's this. Man, I'm gonna buy that because that guy was awesome. And that really goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think, obviously as a boutique or a startup, they love their product, right? But again, it goes back to being able to tell the story, being able to share what your competitive advantage is, and being able to quickly develop and nurture relationships, right? Those three things, you have to be doing all three of those things in order to get traction.
Yeah, Davidoff, right, for example, when they come out with a cigar, they give you a Dropbox link, and they go, hey, this is all of our marketing tools to help us launch this cigar. Reels, artwork that they've taken, maybe press releases that they've done, all ammunition so you can launch that cigar for them. If a guy's going to launch one cigar, if he just put all of his time and effort into doing those things, so that way when he comes to the consumer, when he comes to the retailer and he goes, here's my marketing toolkit, here's what I can do for you. By the way, I don't really have much of a marketing budget, but what I can do is I can come spend time in your store.
Right.
So now we can promote it on social media with all of his stuff.
Yeah.
We can co-brand stuff with him, and he can come hang out in the store. It works out.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Super helpful. When you think about where you are right now, what's next? Where do you see yourself?
I would like to open 2 more stores within the next couple years, for sure. Finding the right location has been challenging. I would like to. I would also like to get back to those kind of events that we were doing before COVID, because during and after, they've kind of slowed out and there's been less enthusiasm. So building consumer enthusiasm again for those fun events, that was what made the job really fun.
Right. Yeah.
So just getting back to having fun again in the stores.
Gotcha. And those additional locations, are you talking about geographically local, or are you talking about
geographically local?
Gotcha. Okay.
Although if there's opportunities elsewhere, we'll see what happens.
So thinking about, with your vast experience and your knowledge, and again, this may be a loaded question. What's your favorite, your couple of favorite cigars?
From a personal standpoint or from a retailer standpoint? Retailer standpoint, it's whatever I have the most inventory of.
I knew that. Personally.
My go-tos are Davidoff, Ashton, Padron, and Aganorsa. Those are the companies that I'm taking on vacation with me. And within those brand portfolios, there's something for every flavor.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think for me, it's, and you probably know this better than I do, Davidoff, Liga, and Plasencia. Kind of where I find myself these days. But again, that's one thing I like about the sector and the industry. There's so much to choose from. You know, I'm always open to trying, you know, something new that fits the flavor profile, which again, I lean on Kyle and Chris to help me out with, and Kevin to help me out with that. Well, this has been very, very enlightening. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation, and I've learned a lot. Hopefully folks have learned a lot as well, and we look forward to having you back on, and appreciate you joining. And with that, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, if you want to check the podcast, you can do that at burnandlearnpodcast.com. You can also hit me on Instagram at stogie.hub. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to say thank you to Rebellion for having us. Thanks again to Alec for joining us. And again, look forward to continue our conversations. With that, we'll wrap up. Hope everyone has a great evening.
Thanks for lighting one up with us. That was Stephen Mann. And you've been listening to Burn and Learn, the Cigar Lifestyle Podcast. Brought to you by Stogie Hub. Elevate your cigar game. This episode was a full production by Access Studios. Access the power of video. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel for exclusive content and hit that subscribe button to stay updated.